Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Good Tvach, Shva Tov. We are learning Mishnah Beitza, Parak Aleph, Chapter 1, Mishnah Hey, Mishnah 5. All right. Bei Shammai Oimrim, Bei Shammai say, Ein Mesalkanas HaTarisim B'Yomtiv. One cannot remove the doors on Yontif. Ubeisilo Matirin Af Lahachser. Beisilo permit even to put them back. So we're talking about is like this. We're talking about that there were vendors, they used to sell spices. And they had their, called a closet. And in the closet, they held their spices. And there was a door in front of the closet. It was movable. Now, this door was not your regular door. It wasn't like a door that was on a hinge. Rather, it was a door that you kind of, let's just call it this way. You fitted in to close it, and you pulled it out to open it. Okay, so it wasn't a door that swung back and forth, but rather it was something that you either stuck it in and you removed it. And then what the dealer would do is he could take that door and like kind of spread it out and put his spices and wares on top of it to display. Now we're going to learn at some point in the Mishnayos that it's possible to sell things on Yontif, for Yontif. It's a way of doing it. So we're talking about here that it's Yontif, and this person wants to go ahead and sell his spices. And he wants to be able to bring, he's got his closet there, and he wants to take out the door to open it. He wants to put the door back to close it. So Beis Shammai say, you can't do it. You cannot remove the door, and you can't put it back. Why? Because it resembles, when you take the door out, it resembles demolishing, it resembles seiser, demolishing, taking apart, and putting it back in resembles baina building. Now, it's not actual building. It's not the actual malacha of building, which the same way you can't do it on Shabbos, you can't do it on Yontif, because number one, we're not talking about something that's connected to the ground. It's a movable closet. That's reason number one. It's not baina, it's not building. And number two is because again, it's not like you're setting in a door that opens and closes. It's just basically a stopper. It puts in, you take it out. So it's not like putting up a door, making a door that would be considered like being baina building, but rather it's similar to building. And Beis Shammai say, therefore, you cannot do it. Beis Hillel say not only can you open it up, you can put it back. Now, Beis Hillel's reason for being able to say that we're not really concerned about this is because, as we're going to see, Beis Hillel holds in these cases that when there is an issue of simchas yontif, there's an issue of increasing the joy of yontif. So there are certain rabbinic prohibitions that are going to be set aside. The rabbis didn't make their prohibitions in that situation. So here we're talking about, people need, they need their salt, they need their pepper, right? They need their jalapeno, whatever it is that they're looking for, right? The bottom line, that's the kind of, new generation thing. That you need that in order to be able to enjoy your food. So therefore, even though perhaps it could look like building or demolishing, it could look like demolishing by taking the door out. Beis Hillel say for simchas yontif, in order to enhance the joy of yontif, the sages say you can do it. Okay, so that's a good reason why to open it, because if you don't open it, you can't get the stuff out. But maybe you shouldn't put it. Maybe you should have put the door back. Just leave it open. You don't need it to close the door. You need to open it in order to sell the spices. You don't need to close it to sell the spices, do you? So Beis Hillel say, yes, you do. Because if I can't close it, I'm not going to open it. I'm not going to bother selling the stuff if I can't close it and protect it afterwards. So therefore, according to Beis Hillel, the simchas yontif includes what you actually need for yontif and what you need to do in order that you'll be willing to do what's needed to be done to enhance the joy of yontif. Okay, that's the first case. Next case. Beis Shammai say, a noitlin es ha'eli lekatzel of basar. You cannot take an eli. An eli is a large pestle, meaning in your typical, smaller pestle, you got the mortar, you got the pestle, and you chop up things, right? That's how you do it. This was used to chop up grain. So this was big. This is big. This was large. I think it was even, I don't know if you describe it as circular, but this was a large pestle. Okay, it resembles a thick, heavy board. So you usually use it for chopping, right? Use it for chopping. But it was also very convenient to make it like a board, use it to grind things rather. But it was also very convenient to take it and use it as a board to cut meat on it. And that's what you want to do on Yontif. Now, what's the matter with this thing? This Eli, this pestle, we'll just refer to as, is really muktzah. It's muktzah. So one reason it's muktzah, I'll read to you here from the way they bring it down from one explanation why it's a muktzah. So by Shammai rule that it may not be used as a chopping board for meat because it is muktzah. Since this type of board is expensive, the owner does not allow it to be used for anything besides its regular use, for fear that it will be ruined and he will lose a valuable item. So although you're decided that you want to use it to hack flesh on it, you want to use it to chop meat on it, that's not really what it's meant to be used, and typically that's not what people would allow it to be used for. And therefore falls under the category of what we call muktzah machmes chesaron kis. Muktzah because of a concern for monetary loss, which is a pretty severe form of muktzah. And therefore, Beis Shammai say, you can't do it. You can't use it for that. It's muktzah. Beis Hillel matir and Beis Hillel matir, they permit it. Again, why? If you can't chop your meat, not gonna be good. You're not going to be able to enjoy Yontif. And therefore, B'simchas Yontif, Beis Hillel say, this muktzah, the Chachamim suspended. All right, next case. Beis Shammai say, a niceness ha'ar lefnei hadarisan v'lo yagbiyadu. All right. As we mentioned before, can you slaughter an animal on Yontif? Yes, you can. Right? You want to go ahead and you want to eat the meat. You're allowed to slaughter fresh meat, nothing better than fresh meat. Right? So you can slaughter it, so you can slaughter it on Yontif. Okay? You can. That's halacha. Now, before you're going to eat that meat, you got to take off the skin. You got to take off the hide. Now, typically, when you take off the hide, you're going to turn it into leather, right? Which has a whole process called tanning, which actually to tan on Shabbos Yontif is forbidden. Step number one, after you skin the animal, was you put the skin somewhere where people would step on it. You put it down somewhere where people would walk on it. And by walking on it, that prevents it from prevents it from you want to eat that making hide. The reason that you're doing it, right, it helps it, they bring out here, it prevents it from decaying. Okay? So it's not actual tanning, right? It's not actual tanning. It's doing something to prevent it from getting ruined. And Beis Shammai say, well, you can't do that on Yontif because it is connected. People might think, the way they bring it down here in the notes, the Miri says, people see you do that, they might think that you're going to be tanning it on Yontif too. And therefore, Beis Shammai say, this is forbidden to do. You cannot put it in front of people to trample on it on Yontif. Nor, if it was already on the floor before Yontif, and now you want to pick it up, you can't pick it up either. Why? Because it's muktzah. They explain down here, a fresh hide, which is still moist, cannot be used for anything. It is thus muktzah, and may not be moved on Yontif. Okay? So, essentially, it's muktzah. However, the Mishna continues, if there's a little bit of meat left on that attached to that hide, then that allows you to carry the whole thing. The meat is not muktzah, and therefore the hide that's connected to it is not muktzah. Now, that wouldn't allow you to go ahead and put it in a place where people trample on it, because that's not an issue of muktzah. That's an issue of, people might think that you're going to do a malacha with it. But if, let's say, it was there before Yontif, now it's a question of picking it up. So then we say, Beis Shammai say you can't pick it up either. It's muktzah. It has no use. But if it still has a piece of meat connected to it, then it's not muktzah anymore. Beis Hillel matirin. Beis Hillel, again, they permit you to go ahead and do all these things. You can put it down under, if people want to trample on it, you can put it on the ground. If it doesn't have a kazayas, a basar on it, you can pick it up. And this is, again, because we want people to slaughter meat on Yontif. If they cannot deal with the hide properly, they're going to have to allow the hide to ruin. They're not going to slaughter their animal. And if you're not going to be able to pick it up from the ground when it's time to pick it up from the ground, they're not going to shut the animal to begin with. And therefore, Beis Hillel permit you be able to put it down on the ground for people to trample on and to be able to pick it up. Last case, Beis Shammai say, Ein moitzien loy es hakotan v'loy es halulav v'loy es sefer Torah l'shus harabim. On Yontif, you may not take out, right? We know that there's a malacha called haitzah, right? Can't transfer from a public domain to a private domain, vice versa. 4 amas, 4 cubits in a public domain. That's haitzah. So Beis Shammai say, Ein moitzien loy es hakotan. You may not take out, you may not carry a child Less a lulav, not a lulav, and not a sefer Torah into a public domain on Yontif. You can't do that according to Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai hold like this. We know that their malachis, there are forbidden activities that are on Shabbos that have been permitted to do on Yontif, l'tzarech eichel nefesh, for the purposes of food preparation. You want to go ahead and carry food outside, Beis Shammai say, that you can do. But that's it. The Torah allowed you tzarech eichel nefesh. The Torah permits certain malachas in order to be able to have food. Okay, so for food you can do it. But for other purposes, you can't do it. You want to take your kid to shul? No Erev, you can't do it. You want to go and carry a lulav on Yontif? No, you got to bring it to shul beforehand. Beis Hillel matirin. Beis Hillel permit. Beis Hillel, and this is what we paskin, as we all very well aware, that we do carry outside on Shabbos, on Yontif, as long as there is a need for it, right? If there's a need for it. If there's no need for it, then you can't. If there's a need for it, you can go ahead and carry on Yontif. And that's because Beis Hillel say we have a rule, and this is a very important rule to know for Yontif, and that is mitayach shehutra l'tzayrech, hutra nami shalei l'tzayrech. If you have a malacha, a form of work that is permissible for a food preparation need, it also becomes permissible even not for a food preparation need. And therefore, since haitzah essentially is permissible to carry food, once it's permissible for carrying food, it could also be permissible for carrying anything else that has a purpose on Yontif. So that's what Beis Hillel say. That's why they permit, and this is the halacha that we follow. That's why on Yontif we say you can carry anything that you need, not just food. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Good to go.
Thank you, everybody.